Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be running you over how to set up your training to become lean and athletic. So we're going to be running over a series of key steps to help you achieve that lean and athletic physique that everyone wants, but they don't quite know how to achieve. If you're new to the channel, my name is Joe. I run an online coaching company called Athletic Aesthetic, and we specialize in coaching professionals achieve the lean athletic physique whilst managing their routine. So the first step is to establish how many days per week that you can realistically train. Speak to a lot of people that are very excited to get into their training, start following a training program, and they say that they can train every single day of the week. Now, for most people, this is just unrealistic. You want to think about how many days per week you can commit to training on a very, very busy week of work. I think an ideal amount for most people is probably 4 to 5 sessions a week. Now, if you're wanting to achieve that lean and athletic physique that we were talking about before, it's going to come down to a combination of strength training and cardio. The best way to think about the training is the strength training, the resistance training. That's going to be responsible for shaping the way you look, helping you build muscle, helping you build that kind of chiseled physique. And then the cardio, not only is it going to help you improve cardiovascular health, improve overall fitness, but it's going to be a useful tool to expend more energy throughout the week, essentially meaning that you can lean down whilst consuming more calories, which we'll get onto in a second. So as we were saying before, the strength training is going to be responsible for shaping the way you look. So we need to decide how many strength training sessions per week that you want to do. Now, here we've got exposure. So ideally, we want to be exposing ourselves to each major muscle group in the body twice per week, which is optimal for strength and hypertrophy gains. Now, you can achieve that with various different training splits. You could be training 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I think for most people that we coach, and I think an ideal training split for most people is to do either 3 or 4 strength training sessions per week. Now, the actual training split that you follow will be different for 3 versus 4. So if you were just training 3 days per week and you were wanting to, as we were saying before, expose yourself to each major muscle group twice per week, a good training split would be something like an upper, a lower, and a full body training split. If you were doing 4 per week, you could do 2 lower, i.e. 2 leg days and 2 upper body days. Some people, if they want to focus a little bit more on the upper body, we could do an upper, a lower, a push, and a posterior training session, which would combine essentially some back movements and the muscles on the back of your body with some lower body movements, like for example, RDLs or hamstring curls. So basically decide whether you want to strength train 3 or 4 days a week. And if you were wanting to train 5 days a week in total, including cardio, but you wanted to do a little bit more cardio, you'd probably be better off choosing 3 per week. If you were more focused on building as much muscle as possible, you'd probably want to opt for 4 days per week. Now, the difference in terms of how much muscle you would build, 3 versus 4, would be very, very close. It really wouldn't make a difference. But within our coaching program, we're always about personal preference. So we want people to do the sort of training that you enjoy. So if you want a more even balance of strength versus cardio, 3 strength and 2 cardio might be a good option if you're training 5 days per week. Now, within any strength training program, regardless of how many days per week that you're training, you want to be focusing on progressive overload, which I'm sure that you've heard of, which essentially means doing more each week in your strength training program. So either increasing the amount of reps that you're doing, increasing the weight, or a combination of both to increase the total amount of volume. Increasing that volume over time is what is going to allow your muscles to grow and your physique to respond, provided that you're following adequate nutrition targets, resting and recovering as well. So the next step, once you've sorted your strength training routine, would be to decide what cardio that you want to do. Now, you want to try and differentiate between cardio for performance and cardio for fat loss. Now, even if you are doing cardio for performance, something like, for example, running, maybe a triathlon, obviously it is going to contribute to your overall goal of losing fat, but it's a case of deciding what you're trying to optimize for at the moment. So if someone is solely focused on body composition, wants to get as lean as possible within reason, you'd want to opt for lower intensity, steady state cardio, referred to as LISS. So something quote unquote boring, like doing the Stairmaster, doing the spin bike, doing the elliptical, the cross trainer, whatever you want to call it, versus actually choosing a form of cardio that you enjoy purely for the fact that you enjoy it. So for me, for example, I like to strength train 3 or 4 times a week, and I also like to run 2 or 3 times a week. I do running because I enjoy it and I enjoy training for performance. So it's just about understanding what you're training for. Again, going back to what we were saying before, I think it's really important for you to train in the way that you enjoy. But if you had someone that was purely focused on getting as lean as possible for a holiday or a certain event, I'd probably opt for optimizing for fat loss and doing lower intensity forms of cardio like the ones that I mentioned before. The reason for that is they're going to be less stressful on the body, and a good way to think about it is they're literally just a tool for fat loss, a tool to create extra expenditure and burn calories. And then obviously you would program that accordingly. If you were just doing 1 cardio session per week, realistically, if you were trying to progress in something like running, it's going to be hard to progress that much if you're just doing once per week. So you might want to choose 2 and go back to doing the 3 strength training sessions that we were talking about before. If you wanted to do 2 per week, for example, with running, that would allow you to progress and then put longer runs in there and things like that. So you have to decide on what sort of cardio you want to do, and similar to the strength training, you want it to be relatively progressive in nature. So if you're training for performance, you want to progress your running over time, slowly start increasing the distance, maybe start to pick up the pace if you're doing interval training and things like that. And then you could progress your lower intensity cardio by doing more each week. So for example, if you weren't getting leaner and you saw your body weight plateau and you weren't moving towards the goal, you could increase the amount of fat loss cardio that you're doing to move towards the goal quicker. So the last and most important thing when you're designing your own training program to become lean and athletic is going to be the consistency. It's all well and good saying that you want to do 3 to 4 strength training sessions per week, mapping out all the cardio that you're going to do. But if you're not consistent over a long period of time, you're not going to get the results. That's the thing that we preach within our coaching program the most is, as I was saying at the start of the video, being realistic with the amount that you can train throughout the entire year, because you don't want to be one of those people that gets into great shape and then loses it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it valuable. If you'd like to find out more about our coaching, you can hit the inquiry link below in the description of the video, and then you can eventually book in for a call with myself to discuss coaching.